in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Gaboo and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique, with Joel Muteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu, Gaboo, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Gaboo and
Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa Radio from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. I'm in studio with Onele Nzinzi, Buntle Headbush, and Musibudi Makura. Coming up in this hour.
Allows us to be better protected against scams.
Meta has launched new facial recognition features in South Africa.
The manner, the demeanor, the mannerisms, the manner in which he approached that was just so humiliating and embarrassing to all black people in South Africa, in the African continent, in the African diaspora.
And South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa accused of misrepresenting South Africa. But first up, the news with Onele Nzinzi and our sport headlines with Msibudi Makura.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Well, thank you, Lulu, and a very good day to our listeners. A sit-in at home order by banned separatist group Indigenous People for Biafra, IPOB, in Nigeria's southeast has led to the death of over 700 people in the region over the past 4 years. This is detailed by an intelligence consultancy in a news report. The IPOB, campaigning for the succession of the southeast that is predominantly inhabited by the Igbo ethnic group, has been labelled as terrorist organization by Nigerian authorities. SBM intelligence reported that the fatalities resulted from the killing of civilians who defied the weekly stay-at-home order every Monday and on other specific days, as well as from clashes between the IPOB and Nigerian security forces. An IPOB spokesperson denied the group was responsible for the deaths. The IPOB launched the sit-at-home protests in August 2021 across the 5 states of Nigeria's southeast, using it as leverage to demand the release of its leader, Nnamdi Kanu, who is facing trial in the capital, Abuja, on terrorism charges. The group suspended the weekly protests days later, citing a direct order from Kanu, who has been in custody since 2021, and reinstated it only on days the IPOB leader would be appearing in court. South Africa's former President Thabo Mbeki has reiterated that he does not support unconstitutional change of government. Mbeki revealed his intents to meet leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger in an effort to move from their countries from military to civilian rule. Speaking in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Mbeki says Burkina Faso leader Ibrahim Traore has reached out to him for a meeting to discuss the situation in his country.
We are in contact with all three governments in the Sahel, and they're asking for us to work with them to help to determine what happens next in their countries. And we are requesting the Malians to ensure that while we're in Bamako, they arrange that we meet, that delegations from Niger and Burkina Faso that come. That's what we're proposing. That is the first step. There's a very, very important issue that's been raised by the military coups in those Sahel countries.
The National Union of Mine Workers in South Africa plans to meet Sibanye Stillwater's mine management soon following an incident at the mine on Thursday that led to 260 mine workers being trapped underground. All mine workers at Sibanye's Club 7 sub shaft in the west of Johannesburg were safely brought to the surface on Friday night. The mining company says equipment failure caused debris to damage the main shaft, cutting off the workers' exit route. The NUM's national chairperson for health and safety, Duncan Luvuno.
Maybe just to give a background of what happened after the 300 mine workers at Kloof Mines were saved. We agreed as the management that we are going to prioritize the meeting either on Monday or Tuesday while the issue is still fresh so that we can be able to sit timelessly around the table so that we can see how can we avoid this and also to probe of what happened so that it can be avoided. We are still awaiting for management to consult organized labor so that we can meet either Monday or Tuesday.
The Cape Crime Crisis Coalition in South Africa has made an urgent appeal to President Cyril Ramaphosa to establish a national commission of inquiry into gang violence, describing it as a growing national crisis that threatens the security and well-being of communities across the country. Dr. Llewellyn McMaster is a crime expert and leader of the Cape Crimes Crisis Coalition.
Friday's crime stat says that in the Western Cape alone, 208 of the 240 gang-related murders in South Africa occurred in the Western Cape. And some of these police stations have been in the top 30 for some time. So clearly, we hear all the promises of intentional fight against gang. We had the anti-gang unit launched by the president in 2018, but we don't see the results. At the moment, for people on the ground, it feels as if it's getting worse by the day.
Lastly, the Electoral Council of Venezuela has said the party of President Nicolas Maduro has won the country's regional and congressional polls in a vote that was boycotted by most opposition groups, as United Socialists won 23 of the 24 governmentship and an absolute majority in the National Assembly. Maduro is widely believed to have stolen last year's presidential election, for which full results have not been published. The BBC's Leonardo Rocha.
The opposition's decision to stay away from these elections may cost them dearly. Even before polls closed, President Nicolás Maduro announced that he was going to propose changes to Venezuela's electoral system, which will tighten his grip to power. He knew the governing party would secure a majority in the National Assembly vote. After all, last year he declared himself the winner of a presidential poll that nobody else believed he had won. The opposition will now need to rely on greater pressure from the United States.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, the second tennis major of the year, the French Open, underway in Paris, while Mamelodi Sundowns travel to Egypt, knowing they need to score goals to be crowned champions of the CAF Champions League this season. Details coming up at 12:30.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Onele Nzinzi with our news update and Msibudi Makura with our sports headlines. It is 12:08 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's Audio Bouquet Channel 802, OpenView Channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. And you can have a conversation with us on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 4069126. Hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And in case you've missed any of our interviews, you can find them on www.channelafrica.co.za. Go to the Africa Update link and you can find whatever it is that you missed. And today, on hashtag Africa Updates Ask, we turn our attention to Sudan, where over 2,300 new cases of cholera have been recorded. And while a vaccination campaign is set to roll out soon, the outbreak raises concerns about long-term solutions. And this brings us to today's question. Are vaccine campaigns enough to stop outbreaks, or should African countries focus more on long-term solutions like clean water and sanitation? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Share your views on all our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram, and at Channel Africa on Facebook, or send us your WhatsApp message on +27 63406 9126. That's hashtag Africa Update Us.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 10 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today we start in Uganda, where the Uganda's military has announced that it has severed all military cooperation with Germany. Uganda has accused Berlin's ambassador to Kampala, Matthias Schroyer, of involvement in subversive activities in the country. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by our correspondent in Uganda, Mike Arareng. Mike, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
A very good afternoon, and thank you very much, Lulu Gaboo.
Mike, talk to us about these subversive activities. What exactly are they referring to?
Well, it is true that the relationship between Uganda and Germany has gone bad, as Uganda officially suspends all military and defense cooperation with the Federal Republic of Germany with immediate effect. The announcement was made on Wednesday by Colonel Chris Magezi, Acting Director of Defense Public Information, citing serious national security concerns. According to Uganda People's Defense Forces, the suspension was made possible following credible intelligence alleging that the German ambassador to Uganda, His Excellency Matthias Schroyer, was engaging in dangerous activities that undermine Uganda internal stability. Though specific action were not detailed, the Uganda Army emphasized that according to the intelligence findings, as justification for terminating military relations. Tension reportedly actually started during a closed-door discussion when the German ambassador sharply criticized General Muhoozi Kainerugaba Museveni, son and current chief of defense forces. The ambassador, who was leading ambassadors from European Union member countries, actually expressed concern over General Muhoozi's frequent social media outbursts, arguing they were harming Uganda international standing. However, those remarks were perceived by Uganda authorities as interference in internal military affairs, further straining diplomatic relations. Some points to note: last week, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba threatened to arrest and deport the EU ambassadors in Uganda, and the reason was because the ambassadors met with the leadership of the National Unity Platform in Kampala.
Now, let's talk about these corporations between the two countries, that's Uganda and Germany. What exactly were the military corporations and what did it entail? And with regards to the subversive activities, it seems like this was triggered. Mike, are you still there? All right, we
Yes,
seem to have lost that connection to Mike. While Tracy tries and get him back on the line. Mike, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay,
I hope
great.
you're getting me.
All right, Mike. Now, with regards to the subversive activities that the ambassador Matthias Schreier is accused of, did it emanate from his response or reaction in this parliament meeting that then resulted with him being accused of subversive activities?
According to the intelligence reports, about 3-4 weeks ago, the Uganda government has been actually monitoring the activities of the ambassador. The Uganda People's Defense Forces intelligence claims the German ambassador is sponsoring rebel groups planning to remove President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. So that is why the government took action. And following the meeting, the Uganda People's Defense Forces leadership moved quickly to enforce the cooperation freeze, stressing that Uganda as a nation, it is actually very concerned about the national interest and it must safeguard at all costs. So it means that all military engagements with Germany have now been put on hold, including joint training programs, defense exchange, and strategic consultation. Germany has so far not issued a formal response up to now.
Now, Mike, they're basically saying that Ambassador Schreier as a person is problematic. Now, is this after the monitoring of his activities and the issues now that are being brought to the fore? And also, you touched on and mentioned the fact that an EU ambassador was also threatened of being expelled from the country, from Uganda. Could this action be in response, all of this be in response to that meeting? I know I've already asked that question, but just trying to get clarity on the big issue. They're saying that they've been monitoring the ambassador's activities, but also the question or just the issue of social media and the use of social media by Uganda's military chief, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, also is said to be an issue. Is this in defense to that?
Yes, because Kainerugaba is actually one of the most powerful leaders here in Uganda. And it appears that he is the one who ordered for the suspension of the relationship between Uganda and Germany. As per the situation, critics of government argue that such claim of foreign-backed sabotage could be part of a broader strategy to suppress dissent ahead of the 2026 election. Civil society organizations here in the country have expressed alarm of what they perceive to be a shrinking space for political expression. At the same time, foreign missions in Kampala have remained silent, possibly weighing their response amid complex geopolitical calculations. So they are still waiting. Yeah.
For all that response and okay. Now, Mike, just in wrapping up, opposition parties, what are they saying on the ground?
As I speak right now, the opposition, they say that that one is just a tactic by the government to ensure that elections are won by the ruling party, and also to try to threaten the outside world who actually are trying to support the opposition. But the opposition, they say they will remain firm and they will continue with their activities until they remove His Excellency, the President of Uganda, during the elections that will be conducted next year.
Well, Mike, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you too, and have a good good time.
Thank you, Mike. That's correspondent in Uganda, Mike Arareng, joining us on the line.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 19 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. A sit-at-home order by a banned separatist group, Indigenous People of Biafra, in Nigeria's southeast has led to the death of over 700 people in the region over the past 4 years. This is according to a report by an intelligence consultancy, SBM. The IPOB campaigning for the secession of the southeast that is predominantly inhabited by the Igbo ethnic group has been labeled a terrorist organization by Nigerian authorities. SBM intelligence reported that the fatalities resulted from the killing of civilians who defied the weekly stay-at-home order every Monday and on other specific days, as well as from clashes between the IPOB and Nigerian security forces. And to discuss this further, we have our correspondent in Nigeria, Jonathan James Liam Gon, on the line. Jonathan, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thanks, Jonathan. Hopefully you're also doing well. Now, tell us more about this sit-at-home order. It's claimed the lives of more than 700 people over a 4-year period. What led to that, and what does it mean for the Southeast communities?
Well, yes, the sit-at-home order started out in about August of 2021. And the independent people of Biafra, also known as IPOB, has been in existence longer than that. But what particularly started the sit-at-home order in itself was when its leader, Nnamdi Kanu, was taken from Kenya. He was in a visit to Nairobi, Kenya, and he was basically, they say he was abducted by Nigerian security officials, cahoots with the Kenyan authorities, and brought back to Nigeria. And they said because he holds a dual citizenship, he holds a British citizenship as well as a Nigerian citizenship. And they said he was taken without following due process. And as a result, they said they were trying to pressure the Nigerian government to release him, or for him to be released, even if it were to be on bail. But that didn't happen. So initially they started out with the sit-at-home order saying, for as long as their leader is in detention, there will be no business activities taking place in the southeast. Then it morphed into saying, okay, they will do that only on a certain days. And then they said on that day, there wouldn't be any economic activities. And it just kept on morphing and eventually morphed into a fixed date of Mondays, every Monday. So pretty much since 2021 till about now, every Monday, the sit-at-home order has been observed. But that has waned over time from absolute compliance, because what happened was they were taking laws into their hands. Once anyone was cited outside on those Mondays, they were dealt with, in some cases killed. But the IPOB itself has said they are not the ones to blame for killings. That the people to be blamed for killings are the Nigerian authorities, as well as splinter groups or people who have taken advantage and misused their presence and their stance in the southeast. But all of this, Lulu, comes from, it's hard to just look at this in what is happening right now without looking at the root cause. You may know that Nigeria was involved in a very terrible civil war between 1967 to 1970. And during that time, millions of people, and that has never quite left the Nigerian social discourse. And generations after generations have oftentimes tried to bring back the conversation. And Nigeria, some would say, has not particularly had a closure on that. And that is what we continue to see that has morphed into this particular scenario, Lulu.
That's a lot of people, though, over a 4-year period. Over 700 people in 4 years. That's a lot of people. And clearly no one is taking accountability because there's a lot of finger pointing. If it's not the Nigerian security forces, it is the Nigerian security forces saying that it is the IPOB. So who do we believe?
It's actually a convoluted situation, if I may put it that way, because what has happened is because of that enforcement, it has given rise to criminality. In some cases, it has blown into bigger proportion what had existed before. So take, for instance, kidnappings and abductions of people for monetary reasons. That had existed in that region before 2021. But once this situation started happening, a lot of young stars saw it as a license to carry arms. So the proliferation of small arms became a thing. And quite a lot of prominent persons have been caught in the line of fire during this period. In fact, last year, was it the year before, I think, there was an American mission that was delegation that was on a mission in that axis in Anambra State, and they came under fire, and there was a loss of lives that happened, and that's to say the least. So it is a situation that started out as some would argue as a justified struggle for liberation, but it has morphed.
All right, we seem to have lost that connection to Jonathan James Liam Gon, our correspondent in Nigeria, and he was joining us on the line. It is 25 after 12, Central African time.
My name is Neto, N-E-T-O Chamani. Osiatiko, Nengezimo, Mkhandlu, Phandle kunjani moyani. Voko Tendele. Africa at Play, Asteleli Siashaya. Africa's velvet voice is in the house. Africa at Play is a place to be, where we speak all things sport and music, from the African continent to the rest of the world. We speak to your bundles of joy in sport, 12-year-olds and below, teenagers in sport. And we speak to elite athletes, administrators, coaches, and all the behind-the-scenes stakeholders of sport and music. Africa at Play, Asteleli Siashaya. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Over 2,300 new cases of cholera have been reported in Sudan as the country battles to contain the outbreak. Now, the health minister, Haitham Mohamed Ibrahim, says the recent surge in cholera cases is estimated to be between 600 and 700 cases over the last month. Now, Ibrahim says there is hope as the department begins a cholera vaccination campaign in the coming days. And for more, we are joined on the line by a correspondent in South Sudan. That's Duku Wilson. Duku, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much, Lulu. I will be back at Channel Africa once more.
Now, Duku, what can you tell us about the health crisis in general in Sudan?
Well, yesterday, a statement was issued by the Director of Minister Katus that more than 80 cases.
All right, Duku, unfortunately, the connection is not the greatest. While we try and get you back on the line, just give us a few seconds or so. That's Duku Wilson, who is our correspondent based in South Sudan, just unpacking the crisis that is unfolding in Sudan, where over 2,300 new cases of cholera have been recorded. And, the department the department vaccination campaign is about to begin in a few days' time, and with the loss of life, or estimated cases rather, sitting in between 600 and 700 cases. You're listening to Africa Updates, coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406-9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. Now, global technology company Meta has launched new facial recognition features in South Africa to help combat scams and support faster, more secure account recovery on its platforms. Now, the new tools are designed to detect and remove deceptive celeb bait ads that misuse the images of public figures to trick users into scams. Alongside this, Meta is rolling out a video selfie verification feature that enables users to regain access to compromised accounts more easily and securely. Tutongobeni has the report.
Celeb bait scams involve unauthorized use of a celebrity's image, name or likeness to lure individuals into engaging with fraudulent content. Scammers create ads, social media posts, or emails that feature well-known public figures to make their schemes appear legitimate and enticing. In response to this, Meta has introduced new facial recognition features in South Africa to help combat scams and support faster, more secure account recovery on its platforms. Balkisa Ido Sido, Public Policy Director at Meta Sub-Saharan Africa, says this feature is a technical technology that is effective in stopping celeb bait scams.
Facial recognition has been introduced in South Africa to combat scams and help users recover compromised accounts more effectively. It's a technology that is particularly effective at stopping celeb bait scam, which, as you probably know, use altered image of public figures to trick users into engaging with fake ads. So the system actually, what it does is that it compares suspicious ad images to verified public profile pictures and deletes any data generated in the process immediately, whether or not it's a match. So doing so, it allows us to be better protected against scams.
The features are privacy first. Any facial data is encrypted, used only for one-time verification, and deleted immediately after the process is complete. These updates reflect Meta's broader commitment to online safety and identity protection in South Africa, with Sido saying public figures in the country will be automatically enrolled with an option of opting out if they're not interested.
And that report by Tuto Ngobeni. And it is 12:30 Central African time. And to say good afternoon to Onele Nzinzi with our news headlines.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. A sit-at-home order by banned separatist group Indigenous People of Biafra IPOB in Nigeria's southeast has led to the deaths of over 700 people in the region over the past 4 years. This is detailed by an intelligence consultancy in a news report. South Africa has officially reopened the Lesotho Highlands Water Project tunnel in Clarence, Free State Province, following a 6-month shutdown for joint maintenance. And the new president of Romania, Nicuro Dan, will be sworn into office today, having defeated his nationalist rival a week ago. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Oh, thank you, Onele. Say good afternoon to Msibudi Makura with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. A very good afternoon from the sports desk. We'll start with football news. So former Manchester United boss Erik ten Hag has been appointed as the manager of Bayern Leverkusen on a 2-year contract. Now, the 55-year-old Dutchman replaces Xavi Alonso, who left Leverkusen to join Real Madrid. Now, ten Hag has been out of a job since getting sacked by United in October of last year, with the Old Trafford club languishing 14th in the Premier League standings at that time. His most successful stint came at Ajax Amsterdam, where he coached from 2018 right until 2022, winning 3 titles there and also taking the club to the Champions League semi-finals in 2019. So under Spaniard Alonso, Leverkusen secured the double in 2023-2024 season as they lifted their first ever Bundesliga title without losing a game, and then also they won the German Cup and reached the Europa League final. Ten Hag had been linked with a return to Ajax before penning a deal with Leverkusen, who finished second to Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga this season. On to tennis news now. For the French Open first round continues today at Roland Garros, with defending champions Carlos Alcaraz as well as Iga Swiatek beginning their title defences, while the world number 1 Jannik Sinner opens his quest for a 4th Grand Slam crown. So Swiatek, who lifted the trophy in 2020, 2022, 2023 as well as last year, has been far from her best in the clay swing and slipped out of the world's top 3 for the first time since March of 2022 after falling short in Madrid as well as Rome. She faces Slovakian Rebeka Samkova in the opening match of this competition. In the pick of the first round matches in the women's singles draw, 4-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka will take on former world number 2 Paula Badosa. Osaka has never made it past the 3rd round in Paris, but can take to heart from her performance at the WTA 125 event in Saint-Malo, France, where she picked up her first title on clay. So the pair was supposed to meet in Rome, but Badosa, a semi-finalist at this year's Australian Open, was forced to withdraw due to a knee injury. Meanwhile, defending champion Alcaraz is a strong favourite in the men's singles draw, this after lifting trophies in both Monte Carlo as well as Rome. The Spanish world number 2 was initially scheduled to face off with Kei Nishikori, but will instead play against the 110th ranked Giulio Zapperi after the Japanese former world number 2 withdrew from this year's competition. Alcaraz has already crossed paths with Zapperi once before, beating the Italian in 3 sets at the Croatia Open back in 2022, and should have little trouble progressing to the 2nd round. Jannik Sinner, meanwhile, is bidding to win a 3rd Grand Slam tournament in a row when he begins his campaign against Frenchman Arthur Rindignach, but his preparations have been hampered by a 3-month doping ban. The Italian agreed a settlement with World Anti-Doping Agency in February and began an immediate suspension, only returning to action at 3 months at the Italian Open last week, where he managed to reach the final, only to be beaten by Alcaraz in that final. So Sinner also said he wasn't sure just how he would hold up to the physical demands of a Grand Slam, telling reporters that, and I quote, "We are working hard, trying to reach the physical level I'd like to and how I would like to feel on court." Quote rather. On to basketball news now. Soweto Panthers coach Ronaldo Cortez anticipates an impactful run by his side in the youth season of the South African Basketball Africa National League rather. Now speaking to Channel Africa Sport, Cortez explains his team's state of readiness for this season's league.
So we prepare ourselves now to start the season at the beginning of June. But the BNL season has started as of this past weekend. And it's really exciting because, we've got a really amazing team that we've been able to put together. I'm looking very forward to see the impact that we'll have on the game of basketball as well as the Basketball National League.
At the same time, he was born in Cleveland in the USA, Ohio. He's an American, Cortez. He sort of now speaks about African-American basketballers versus players on the African continent and what the difference is between the two players.
The problem that I have with the game in the States is that a lot of the time, the African-American players have no knowledge of the value that they bring to the game from an intrinsic point of view, from a visible point of view, and also from an actual equitable point where they actually are vested into the game. So a lot of time they take it for granted because they think that no one else is going to overtake them at the throne. But basketball in Africa, 54 countries, we are a very small minority in America in comparison to the global game. And people are hungry. They want the opportunities that sometimes maybe we overlook and take for granted. And at the end of the day, again, it gives us the ability to create an amazing environment for life transformation.
Well, that's wrap from the sports desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
Now, a Mauritanian appeals court has this week handed down a 15-year prison sentence and a hefty $3 million fine to the country's former president, Mohamed Ould Abdel Aziz, for corruption, money laundering, and illicit self-enrichment. The ruling upholds and escalates an earlier conviction from 2023, marking a significant moment in Mauritania's efforts to tackle high-level corruption.
In terms of the country fighting corruption, I think this case shows the seriousness of the country in trying to fight corruption. There is substantial evidence that indicates to the fact that he was corrupt. These cases are always very difficult to then be able to balance whether they're not politically motivated and also balancing the rule of law.
Nyasha Mpani, who's a project leader at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation in South Africa.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine.
Well, thank you to Msibudi Makura with our sports update, and we say good afternoon to Buntle Headbush with our business.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good afternoon. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says US President Donald Trump will attend the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg later this year. This comes after President Ramaphosa and a South African delegation met with President Trump in Washington last week. Tabiso Luhoko has more.
President Ramaphosa has acknowledged in his weekly letter to the nations that while there was a need to correct false claims of a so-called white genocide, the overarching goal of his engagement was to deepen a strategic economic partnership with the US, who is the country's second largest trading partner. The presidency is pleased with the meeting, saying the meeting established a basis for great engagement and cooperation. The president has further extended an invitation to President Trump to send a government and business delegation to South Africa to explore opportunities for deepening investment and trade.
Public Interest South Africa has formally written to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications, Khusela Sangoni, to request an opportunity to make a formal submission to Parliament. This submission aims to oppose the recent proposal by the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Solly Malazi, to exempt Elon Musk's satellite operator Starlink from compliance with South Africa's broad-based black economic empowerment requirements in the ICT sector. Debo Khokas is the chairperson of Public Interest South Africa.
There are concerns that we've raised, chief among them being legal and procedural concerns around this proposed exemption. For instance, we believe firmly that there may be overreach on the part of the Minister of Communication. And we know that the issue of equity equivalence rests within the Department of Trade and Industry. And obviously, whatever proposals he may have, they will still have to be approved or sanctioned by the Department of Trade and Industry. Having said that, it appears that there's no alignment between the two departments.
Former Kenyan Cabinet Minister Amina Mohamed has added her voice behind the election of Swazi Tshabalala as a new head of the African Development Bank. Mohamed argues that Tshabalala's candidacy represents not only a milestone for gender equality, but a strategic choice for the continent's future. Member and co-founder of Global Women Leaders, Susanna Malcora, has also made a case why the AFDB must seize the historic opportunity to elect its first woman president.
The FDB remains actually one of the 19 international organizations that have never had a woman at the helm. And so this election is a historic one. It provides a wonderful opportunity, elect a woman to lead the FDB.
Nigeria is set to commission 2 major lithium processing plants this year, marking a shift from raw mineral exports towards adding value domestically. The facilities, largely funded by Chinese investors, could help transform Nigeria's vast mineral wealth into jobs, technology, and manufacturing growth within the country. Mining Minister Dele Alake says a $600 million lithium processing